Welcome back to Rejig and Redo, where I try to make bad things better and old things new. Today I'll take you through the process involved in repairing and rebuilding this rotten wooden window frame. I'll treat it using Ronseal wet rot wood hardener and I'll rebuild it using Ronseal wood filler. And just for the record, I'm not getting any sponsorship, but I am open to offers. This was my first attempt at filming my work in progress, and as you can probably tell, I've speeded things up a bit in certain parts of the video. I started by scraping away all the spongy rotten wood. It was in pretty bad condition, but it actually wasn't as bad as I first thought it was going to be. And because it has a UPVC windowsill, it's a reasonably small job as it goes, so I'm quite lucky. Apparently UPVC is an abbreviation of unplasticized polyvinyl chloride, for those of you who wish to know. Once I'd finished scraping all the rotten wood away, I brushed it down and cleaned it up, removing all the dust and dirt. Then it was time to treat the wood with Ronseal wet rot wood hardener. Using an old paintbrush, I gave the whole area a generous coating, making sure to get in all the nooks and crannies and soaking the wood completely. This is a clear looking fluid. It's very runny, very sticky, and it dries quite quickly. Within about 2 hours, the remaining wood should be solid. I recommend using a disposable brush, as I ended up ruining mine. I tried cleaning it with white spirits and hot soapy water, but it didn't work for me, so if you have any tips or suggestions, pop them in the comments below. I'd really appreciate it. Once I was satisfied the wood was completely saturated, I cleaned up the windowsill using a microfiber cloth and some white spirits. It was then I noticed I'd missed a bit. Typical, so I sorted that bit out as well. Eventually I stopped poking and prodding at it, I took a well-deserved break and had a nice cup of coffee. 2 hours later, I came back, I checked it was dry, I went over it lightly with some sandpaper, but I completely forgot to film that bit. I cut some scraps of wood to create a false edge to give the filler something to bind onto, and I also used some scraps of wood to pack it out a bit. It's not always necessary to do this, but it does help reduce the amount of filler that you need to use in the long run. I started to build up the filler around the window frame, making sure to squash it in all the gaps. Now I did have to pause the video a lot as I was filming, stopping and starting to allow the filler to dry in between layers. Then I'd go back and apply some more. This is a high-performance 2-part wood filler. It's suitable for both interior and exterior work. It comes with a little packet of hardener that you mix in with the filler, and the approximate ratio is roughly for every golf ball-sized piece of filler you add a pea-sized amount of hardener, and then you just mix it until the colour is consistent. It dries very quickly, so you've got to work fast. I figured if you could see the process involved in a job like this, then it gives you the opportunity to see what I see, what I started with, how I worked on it, and of course, the finished result. Also, I aim to revisit my jobs, so I intend to come back at some point in the future and give you an update. Just like I did in my last video, where I revisit a window frame I repaired 4 years ago. I'll pop a link to it in the description. Make sure you subscribe and press that little notification bell so you don't miss out. Not everyone has the financial ability to replace things like this. Sometimes a cheap and cheerful, long-term temporary repair is exactly what's needed. This is a process, so despite what it looks like right now, it will look a lot better by the time I've finished with it, I promise. I really enjoyed doing this part. It's almost like doing a form of sculpting. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of times I've started a job and I've thought to myself, why on earth did I start this? What part of my brain thought this was a good idea? But sometimes you've just got to trust the process. It almost always works out in the end, and if not, you find a new solution. As with anything in life. As you can see, the filler is slowly starting to take shape, but there's still a lot of work to do. Meanwhile, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Doing a voiceover does not come naturally to me. So whilst you're watching this, I'm going to play my guitar. You relax, enjoy, and I'll be back with more commentary in a minute. When the main part of the filler was done, I waited until it was completely dry and then I sanded it down using my faithful old mouse sander. I'm using a Black & Decker sanding mouse. It's nice and light and it's perfect for people with smaller hands. I started with an 80 grit sandpaper, then changed to 60 grit, partially because this is the way I prefer to do it, but mainly because it's all I had available. The sanding pads are so easy to change. They're backed with something similar to Velcro, so you just rip off the old one and stick on the new one. They're also pretty cheap to replace, especially if you buy them in bulk. When sanding down any surface, it's important to remember to wear a suitable dust mask and a pair of safety goggles for your protection. At this stage, I was happy enough with it, so I dusted it down thoroughly using a dust brush, and then I proceeded to apply the final layer of filler, which was so much easier to apply because sanding it down had removed all the uneven peaks, making it easier to see the remaining gaps that needed filling. There's a recognisable shape to follow now. I'm not a baker, but I've often wondered if this is a bit like icing a cake. Maybe I should give it a try one day. Not with Ronseal, obviously. I think we need a bit more music. Now where's my guitar? Once I was happy with the overall shape, I let it dry and then I gave it a good sanding down. Please excuse the camera angle, it's not always easy filming when you're working. This bit took me quite a while, but when I was happy it was smooth enough. I painted it, but I forgot to film that bit too. Here's a quick reminder of what it looked like before I started, and this is the final result. I gave it 2 coats of Rustins primer and undercoat, making sure to sand it lightly between applications. Then for the final 2 coats of paint I used Johnstone's exterior quick dry satin paint. To finish it off, I stripped away the old clear sealant and I replaced it with a fresh white bead, making sure to do it all the way around the window. This helps seal and protect it, prolonging its lifespan. I think it turned out all right. What do you think? This is what it looks like after its first UK winter. And if you watch out for my next video, I'll show you how I repaired the left side of this window, which was in a much worse condition than the one you've seen today. I think it's fair to say it looks a lot better than when I started, and I'm confident it will hold up for a few more years. So there we have it, another long-term temporary repair. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. Please like, share and subscribe to see more content from Rejig and Redo, where I try to make bad things better and old things new. Thanks for watching.